For 15 years, Emily had a secret. It was not the kind that you could hide behind a smile or drown in a bottle of wine. This secret was alive, moving, breathing, watching her every step. It whispered in the dead of night, shifting the air with every breath she took. This was not an ordinary secret. No, this secret had a name, and its name was the Genie. Emily wasn't sure when the nightmare had begun, but she remembered the first time she saw him. She was 18, living in a cramped one-bedroom apartment in a forgotten town. Her mother had passed away months before, and her father had been a ghost in her life for as long as she could remember. Emily was used to silence, but the night it began, the silence felt different, heavier, colder. The lights flickered as she lay in bed, her body stiff with the eyes that clung to the air like a damp fog. Her eyes darted to the corners of the room, shadows shifting unnaturally. Then, from the darkness, he appeared. His eyes glowed with an ancient fire, a golden hue that held centuries of hatred and sorrow. His form was indistinct, sometimes large and towering, other times small and wiry. But one thing was constant, his presence. He loomed over her, filling the room with a suffocating pressure. At first, Emily thought it was a nightmare, her mind playing cruel tricks on her in the loneliness of grief. But the Genie didn't leave with the dawn. He stayed, lingering in the shadows, his eyes always watching, always waiting. The early years were the worst. Emily would wake in the night to find him standing at the foot of her bed, his eyes boring into her soul. She tried to ignore him, tried to convince herself that he wasn't real, that it was just her imagination. But the scratches on her walls, the whispers in her ears, and the cold fingers that brushed against her skin told her otherwise. As the years passed, she grew used to him. He became a dark shadow that followed her through life, lurking just out of sight. She moved to a new city, changed her job, even changed her name. But no matter where she went, the Genie followed. There was no escape from him. The Genie never spoke, at least not in a language Emily could understand. His voice was like the wind, a soft and settling hum that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once. Sometimes she would hear him laughing, a deep, guttural sound that set chills down her spine. Other times it was crying, a sound so mournful it made her heart ache. For 15 years, Emily lived in constant fear, never knowing what the Genie wanted or why he had chosen her. She had heard stories about Genie from her grandmother as a child, tales of dark spirits who could possess the living, steal their souls, and drive them to madness. But she never believed them, not until it was too late. One night, as she lay in bed, the Genie spoke. His voice was different this time, clearer, more human. "You belong to me, Emily," he whispered. "You have always belonged to me." Emily's heart raced. For 15 years, she had tried to pretend that the Genie wasn't real, that he was just a figment of her imagination. But now there was no denying it. He was real, and he was claiming her. She wanted to scream, to run, to fight, but she couldn't. The Genie's presence was overwhelming, suffocating. She felt like she was drowning in darkness, the weight of his gaze crushing her. "Why me?" she managed to choke out, her voice barely a whisper. The Genie didn't answer. Instead, he stepped closer, his form towering over her. "You will know soon enough," he said, his voice sending a shiver down her spine. From that night on, everything changed. The djinn became more aggressive, more present in her life. He no longer lurked in the shadows, content to watch her from a distance. Now he was everywhere, at work, at home, even in her dreams. Emily's once peaceful life had turned into a nightmare. She could feel the djinn's influence growing stronger with each passing day, his presence taking over her thoughts, her actions, her very soul. It was as if he was trying to consume her, to become a part of her. She knew she couldn't go on like this forever. Something had to change, but what could she do? She had tried everything: prayers, rituals, even seeking out a priest, but nothing worked. The djinn was too powerful, too ancient. As the 15th year approached, Emily began to feel a strange sense of calm. She had spent so long living in fear that she had forgotten what it felt like to be at peace. But now she felt something shifting, something changing. The djinn had stopped tormenting her, his presence fading into the background once more. But Emily knew better than to believe that he was gone. He was still there, waiting, watching. And she knew that whatever was coming next would be far worse than anything she had experienced before. If you liked this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel for more horror stories. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss new videos. See you in the next story.